everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo City Council work session. It is Monday, September 30th, a little bit after 5:30. 4 members of council are present. Councilman Schenk is going to be just a little bit late this evening. This time I will turn it over to Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is a continuation of our series of work sessions to discuss revisions to the city's land development code. Tonight we'll be having 3 topics that we will want to speak with you, time permitted. We'd like to talk with you about the approval process, revisions to that, standards for accessory structures in residential areas, and then also, if we have time, go over the results of the visual preference survey. Our Development Services Director, Teresa Correa, is here tonight, as well as members from our planning staff. And so I'm going to turn it over to them and let them take you through the different presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Tonight we'll have, before starting, I just need to say that we have another meeting at 7, and one of our members will have to be there from our staff. So general at 7.
We will not be upset if you wrap this all up by 7.
That's up to you.
We heard about that 4.5-hour PZA meeting, so
yes,
we won't say a
it
word.
was a long one.
I think we all need to get up at 7.
Okay.
Just turbo, we're good.
So we'll try to be very brief. Yes.
Councilwoman Jago needs to be there also.
For
Is that the sidewalk meeting?
yes. So we have 3 subjects. The first 2, we need to have directions from you. So these are the ones that we will concentrate on. When we discussed with PZA, we had some things that we want them to consider, and that were things that we considered when revising the approval process. We went back to see the role of the boards, and when proposing changes, trying to see what were the nature of the boards and what we could streamline. So for the PZA, we understood that they should be more linked to zoning issues, land use issues. So we tried to propose that they would get out of the development review process. So that's something that we will show in our tables. So the idea was really to help to streamline the process. The other consideration that we raised was that whatever changes we were proposing, it should be balanced out for us, because we are understaffed, and this is not the primary guideline, but this is also a consideration that we have to take into account. If we are replacing boards, that's okay. If we are increasing additional staffs in all of the application procedures, then we would have much more work. And right now we have the land development code review to do, so that's a major task. Also, and that was mainly for PZA, when replacing GRC with PZA, another consideration was that GRC meets every week. So it has a much more flexible schedule, while PZA meets every other week. So the process gets extended because of that. Deviations, we are proposing to keep the deviations at 10% for staff approval. And we are also proposing improving, the guidelines for denial deviations. And we have had meetings internally and also at DRC discussing what would be the conditions where we could deny a deviation and improve the mitigation techniques. And to understand the deviations, we did a research on the deviation that we had since 2006, so that we could have a feeling of the amount and the different types of deviations. So this gives an idea that from 2006 to 2013, we had 119 deviations requested. The majority were setback deviations. There were 40. Then we had parking, 14. So it gives an idea of the different types of deviations. So if we decrease the deviation percentage from staff level, we would have more deviations being brought to the board. So that's something also to consider. Our recommendations, and these are general things that we would like to discuss. Well, the application fees we have already reduced 20%, but we are going to do a review on a survey without other cities here to see what we can propose later on. This is just a temporary fix, this 20% reduction that we had just approved. Then we would like to have a direction from you about the CAP plan that we showed last time. That was the citizen awareness participation plan that Longwood and Sanford have, and that is the process through which the developers have to go to the communities and get their feedback before coming in the review process. And I think recent cases here show that would benefit the process, but we want to have direction from you if that is something that you would like us to investigate, and we were trying to come with a customized option for Oviedo. We will have proposing also introducing small impact site plans, so we will have a new layer of project by size and the type of impact, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll also have to introduce an approval process for accessory units that we will discuss. And we also would like to reevaluate the architectural review process. So for the architectural review, we think that we need to clarify the process for the applicants and for staff. And the other area that we think bring a lot of concern is the other signs. So our idea is that signs should be linked to the architecture review as much as possible. So if it's a new project and if it's a new, if it's attached to a structure, it should be reviewed in the architectural review stage. And both of them affect community character. So we are trying to because of that, we are proposing that we would bring to City Council the architectural review, and then the signs will be attached to it, new signs, signs with new structures. So that's something that we would like to have direction.
So you want each one to come to us, is what you're asking?
Yeah, because we were discussing and we were seeing all the cases that are more controversial, we should bring to City Council. I mean, if you architecture review, and we have discussed that, there is a discretionary, thing about architecture. So either we would improve the code, and the code will be the law, and we would apply it, and then we would run the deviations or any deviation would come to City Council, whatever you decide, or either we would bring everything to City Council so that there is, this space for discussion here. We are trying to make a process that is clear for the applicants when they come, and also for us, so that we don't have any type of informality in the process too, so that it's clear.
I would assume that you're hoping that would put the pressure on them to come with their best foot forward each time, knowing that they have to come from us, in front of us. Is that what you're...
Well, we can...
What is the goal?
The goal is to have a proper place for discussion, that anything other than the code can be discussed. Because we are a technical layer, right? So we can only require whatever is in the code. We are going to improve the code, but we are limited by the code. So if there is something else that City Council wants that we cannot, if it's not in the code, we cannot request them to do. So we were limited by that. If architecture is a big concern, it is a big focus from the City Council, we would still require the best, but I mean, if there's something else, then it is the proper, place for discussion. It would be at the city council level. Because you have much more room for, negotiation than we do. And sometimes we are limited by that, so that would be the...
Right, and I saw somewhere, looking through here, more stone, less stucco. Was that in the visual preference survey?
The visual preference...
I'm not trying to jump around. If that's
Yeah.
where it is, we'll get to it.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
we'll get, but it's more like texture. I think that's what came out from it. That's...
See, I mean, just in all the years we've been doing this, I mean, we carry a bigger stick when it comes to upgraded features. So I think that could be that hammer, so to speak, that you've been looking for. When they bring you something and you tell them, well, you got to go to the council with this. Are you kidding me? You could just send them back and, start to give them examples, like we had talked about the last time, putting examples in the code for them to bring
That
forth.
it's more visual, yes.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea also because it'll help us all get on the same page. Since we're changing so much, and like you said, it's architectural standards could mean something to you, something different to everyone. So in the beginning, it'll help us all learn, what we want and get on that same page.
It's gonna take all the pressure off the staff too,
Yeah.
because there's so many times where you all mean well and you follow the code to the letter and you apply it, and then for some reason it doesn't work out, some member of council doesn't like it, so now you've completely eliminated that, and that's fine.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, it is confusing for the applicants because that's what we want. We want to show a process that is clear, and consistent from day one. When they come for pre-app, we have to say, well, architecture is a big, concern in the city, so we take it to city council.
Teresa, just to rewind, what did you want to pull, but that you said you were gonna pull back from PZA development review, they're not gonna look at?
We're going to go through the
You're gonna
table,
get into that?
yeah.
Okay.
And they ended up being fine with our proposals. Most of our proposals, they just changed it, I think, one or two, and we'll go through all of them.
Mr. Mayor, before we get too far down that path, we need to be clear that the code is the code. So compliance with the code is the mark.
That is the standard.
That is the standard. So once somebody complies with the code, they're entitled. So I think what Teresa's saying is that there's going to be an aspect included in the code as to certain developments which affect community character, that determination of whether the harmony with community character is attained will be a code issue that won't be staff control, it'll be city council control.
Right, so,
But it's still a code requirement,
subject to interpretation.
subject to application.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know actually much room we have, but I mean, sometimes there is a preference for a kind of material and if we don't have, if that complies with the code, we don't even have that kind of,
But I understand the process will be an issue, that will be a code issue. Does this development appropriately interact, appropriately implement the community character of the community? And that's a decision that the staff's not gonna make.
yes, yeah.
Go to the
Yeah.
city council.
And we'll have the power to say yes or no.
Excuse me?
And we will have the power to say yes or no.
Based upon whatever standards, however that's defined.
Because over in Winter Springs, they're the final stop, on everything. If Winter Springs commissioners want to say, we want more brick on the building, they can do that. Just,
Character, depending on how you define it.
So that becomes part of the code now, that it comes to city council to look at the architectural standards. That's good. That's
And
good.
the
I like that.
philosophy there is who knows community character from staff for the city council.
the ones who get yelled at for it all the time.
Well, does it offer a venue for public comment so that we can listen to and get public comment on what community character might be to the citizens?
Well, you're still gonna define it.
Yeah.
You're still gonna be criteria. Whatever there's definition of criteria, it's up to them.
Yeah, but you have to remember, the citizens They count on us to make these decisions. You know, they always like to say, we want to come down, we want to be involved, we want to do this one. They don't. They want.
Sometimes they do. The times that they do is the times we
Right,
don't.
well, you are right, when it's something of a major scale, but I'm thinking in my mind, these one-offs here and there, you know, they count on us to upgrade those. But yeah, I guess it would be a public hearing, if that's what you're asking. Right, Lonnie?
Do you want it to be,
Public comment?
do you want it to be a public hearing, or do you want it to be like a normal resolution?
I want it to be a resolution.
Where you submit a sheet for public, to participate in public comment?
Yeah, resolution, then they
Well,
can,
sometimes we get wrapped around the axle, I hate to say it, about what is what. The bottom line is an applicant gets due process right. So I suppose opponents to the applicant get due process.
and quite frankly, you know, that,
Meeting, hearing, or whatever,
we say that joking around, but, I mean, 9 out of 10 times, even when I don't have requests,
Right, you'll
I
always
invite the public up to speak anyway, so.
Right. I just look at, when I hear public hearing, I think of advertising, notices, and, you know, all those different things,
A
whereas if it's,
resolution's better with the
it's just a
opportunity to
resolution.
put in a request, yeah.
Right.
so there's always an issue about notice. So they get comments about.
Right, because you're saying when it's a public hearing, then you're adding
all-
advertising costs,
all kinds of different layers.
meeting
onto it.
deadlines, missing deadlines, not being able to have a hearing.
Yeah, but that adds another layer of pressure onto the applicant.
No, it doesn't. That is our
No,
responsibility.
I mean, but he knows it's a public hearing, and there will be, there may be an audience here that will scrutinize, and then that will
That he has to defend the
add an
project.
incentive for
Yeah.
them to bring their best foot forward.
You know, I just thought of something.
I don't care how they do it, Keith, but just so you know the process, we're responsible for placing the ads. The onus is on us.
So,
You know,
we do this for a living.
I just thought of
There's
something
situations where we've missed ads and things have gotten pushed off.
We shouldn't miss ads.
to address your idea about ads and notice and all that.
I don't disagree with you, Keith.
You know that Senate Bill 50 which passed, which provides for public notice and public input and all that? Actually, that could take away the requirement for notice because by law, before every decision is made, the public gets to be heard. So every decision is noticed, basically.
So just the fact that the meeting's noticed means
The
that
meeting's noticed.
And quite frankly, like we said earlier, Lonnie, there's so many times that we don't have a written request on a resolution, and how many times you guys said, anybody want to speak on this? You know, nobody handed one in, because sometimes they don't realize, you know, and there's no reason to cut them off just because they didn't realize the procedure. I mean, it's, you know, that's ministerial at that point. It's just a sheet of paper, who cares? All righty, I think you got direction on that one.
Yes, thank you. That was clear.
I'm not clear, but what is the direction?
The directions that we will have, we'll bring to council.
Okay.
Council
If
will
it's gonna
approve
be-
architecture.
So will it be a public hearing or?
We'll put it under resolutions.
Because a resolution is a public hearing. That's what Lonnie was saying.
It'll still allow public comment.
That's the key point, if you're advertising the meeting, everybody has notice.
Yeah, I had not thought of that.
The whole agenda is public.
It actually takes away
Right.
the obligation to notice because every matter is being heard.
And plus, I think the neighbors are gonna know because you're asking for something in here about them talking to the neighbors or any neighborhoods that are impacted by it, so they'll know.
If
Those
you
neighbors
approve
will
that,
know if they
yeah,
wanna
if you
come to
approve the citizen awareness
Right.
participation plan, then that would be the case, that they would have to be notified.
I guess that's the question, is does council want us to put together a program like that to require developers to go to the neighborhoods ahead of time?
Well, when you say go to the neighborhoods, you know, there comes a point, and I think the mayor was hitting on this, where, you know, people elect us to make these decisions. And it's okay to go speak to the neighborhood, but I don't want to send the developer and make it difficult. So you got to go knock on every door. What it should be, in my view, is that they should go talk to the HOA. Let the HOA disperse that information out because they have a much easier network to get to their residents than a developer. That may turn people off from wanting to develop. Okay, you've got to go hold meetings and all this. They should go to the HOA board, tell them what's going on, give them a certain period of time to get some comments back and handle it that way. Because this way it's easy for them. you start telling them they gotta go knock at every door, or have that would be tough. So I
I don't think that's
I-
what the Longwood plans.
Well, they give specific guidelines how to do that, and they give options. But that was one of my concerns when I talked to them, and both cities, I didn't talk to developers, I talked to the cities. They told me that was not a problem. The developers never raised, that this additional staff became a problem. For them, the benefits were that they would know the problems in advance. They don't need to reach consensus. So it would bring more information to the table ahead of time. So if there is an easy fix, they would fix through the process, through the review process. If not, then, not only developers would know what communities would resist, but also the city would know. So it would just remove the surprise, effect in public hearings when people come and
Right,
oppose to.
but streamlining that process to, and there are some neighbors that don't have HOAs, but the ones that do, wouldn't that be a much more efficient way to tell a developer when he comes in, he's gotta do all this other stuff to get approved here, but hey, you gotta go have a meeting with the HOA staff, and if the HOA staff, who knows their community better than anybody, let them decipher it out and hold the hearings. I mean, I'm trying to take and streamline this off you guys and off us, Yeah, that's a fine thing, but go talk to the HOA. Now, if you don't have an HOA, I'm not sure really how you're gonna get that,
Well,
you don't
I
have.
think if you look at their plans, I've noticed that, you can tell if it's going to impact any of the homes, like they're just in neighborhoods, but maybe anything that really is gonna be impacted by it. Not everybody around it will really be impacted, but maybe there's somebody that butts up to it, and it's gonna take away the lawn that he likes to look at or whatever.
well, what are the criteria for these meetings? I mean, what's the level where developers are required to go?
They have to present a plan in advance to us, say how they are going to do that, and
No,
then
no,
they
no,
have
no,
to
no, no,
report.
no, that's not what I'm asking. A little 10,000 square foot commercial building now has to go have a meeting with HOAs to get approval
Well,
on land that's zoned commercial?
if
And
it's a
what criteria you
If it backs
say?
up to a house, maybe yes, but
If it's
probably not.
adjacent to single family, to residential areas, they would have to contact the neighbors. But they have small site plans too, so they have a different process. For small projects, then I don't remember which city, and probably both cities, but they have, the director can make the call if it's going to apply or not. So they have some kind of discretion how to apply for small projects. Because they say not all small projects need that.
Again, I'm just going to throw this in the barrel, is that they always sound like a good idea when you put them on paper, and they never turn out to be good ideas. But, you got to have a scale. You got to have a, if it's something impactful, something major, because we could have a situation like we did the other night with Sanctuary, where they come in here and it turns into a big thing, and then we just send them on their way. Go work it out and come on back.
Well,
Same thing.
that's the point.
Yeah,
To get them
that's the
together
point.
before they get in here and have a pissing contest, get them together, have them work it out ahead of time. Awareness, a lot of times, is the biggest hurdle to get over. People just aren't aware of what's going on, and that fear kicks in. So if we can do that up front, it allows time for everything to sink in and everyone to get used to the idea.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. To avoid situations like we had with Sanctuary.
I can be proven wrong. I just will say that I think this is going to create more problems than it fixes, but that's just my opinion.
Well, we just need direction on that, on how.
Sounds like you have it. You got direction to do it.
I agree with the mayor.
Is it-
I'm saying, I don't want to get it as broad as it sounds. It should be very simple. Mr. Developer, and if you got a project, go talk to the HOA board and satisfy us that you did. Now it's in the HOA's hands. Because what happens is, you always want to talk and you want to tell people what's going on, but I've seen it so many times, and the Sanctuary thing. Once they have the meeting, then they'll come in and stuff won't get done. So I think you hit it to the boards, and then for neighborhoods that don't have it, I'm not sure what the process is there.
That's what I want to know. If they go to the HOA or the neighborhood and nothing gets done, that's what I want to know. nothing's getting done. Then we could step in. But I'd like to think that if they know they gotta come to us, and they know they gotta make, that neighborhood at least happy, or at least accept it, then they're gonna work with it.
Yeah, but if the HOA board gives the approval, it's done, we're done. You shouldn't have to deal
Yeah,
with
That's fine, that's an
You shouldn't have to
endorsement.
deal with 2,000 homes.
No, that's an endorsement,
That's-
that's fine. Now, doesn't the other programs, don't they just say, show us a plan? It may be if they don't have an HOA, we'll go to the community leaders. If
They
do
do.
have
They
an
have,
HOA,
they have
we-
options, yeah, they have
Contacted the
options.
HOA, put the onus on the developer. I don't think, and I don't know if that's what you're saying, let's not skirt our responsibility and say, go talk to the HOA. I said, no, submit a plan that says, here's the neighborhoods that are affected, or the neighborhood, this is how we plan on approaching that community, either a mailer, or go to the HOA meeting, have a public meeting with the HOA, present our plan, work out the differences, and then go forward. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
The program, and both cities have the same exact program. It's very detailed, and it gives, it's very flexible
Are
on
they
how
the
we
only
can
two
approach.
cities that do this?
Sorry?
Are they the only two cities that do this?
These are the ones that we found nearby.
In Seminole County?
Yeah.
So, whatever,
But they copied from someone else, so I mean, they are
Well,
not the.
assuming that we approve this, because I'm hearing maybe two and two here, because I'm not totally sold on it yet, because I don't want to gridlock someone who's followed the code, followed all the rules, and now has to go get into an HOA or something else that's more political, and it's going to slow them down and make them go somewhere else. So I'm just saying, if it was decided we go, it should be a one-stop thing. I went to the meeting, I laid my plan, now I'm proceeding. And if the HOA don't like that, let them contact
Well,
me.
and it's got
Now
to
we're
be
talking
something.
about out of both sides of their mouth. Do we want them to bring their best step forward, or we want them just to come forward with the minimum standard? I'd rather bring their best step forward.
Yeah, but they still got to come to us, so that's going to make them
That's
put
fine.
their best foot forward.
I
They
want to
know they
find out
gotta
what
come
that
here.
is.
We need to define what size projects have to go into these neighborhood meetings. You can't have every little project
That
going.
may be a good way to cut and say, put a cap on the size of the project.
Something big.
Well, because you got, I can think of a dozen projects right now that are coming down the pipe, that we're going to make these people all go out and have meetings. I mean, it's,
But even, for instance, Dollar General could have benefit from, I think, this process too.
they
Like,
did.
it's not a-
They had to go have meetings.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Well,
that's all
but
we're
they-
doing is say, hey, go do it ahead of time. Don't come to us with that.
But you know what ended up
They could
happening
have-
with that is I ended up being the facilitator.
Yeah. Sanctuary is another example. I think the sanctuary was more people not being aware of what they were trying to change than anything. It made them frightened. So let them go back and figure it out. And then, yeah, if they got to put a fence up or something.
Well,
They're
it's
fine
like,
with us.
let me tell you about Sanford's, Cyrus Spruce, and both ends. As a developer, you come up, present a plan for something, and a district commissioner would say, have you met with the neighborhood yet? If the answer was no, move to continue, just like that. And so then you add to it, and they instituted the cap, and all the cap is report, the developer says, I notified the neighborhood or so-and-so, nobody showed up, which is what most of them say, by the way. Or some people showed up and they had issues with landscape buffers and fences. I agreed to the landscape buffers, but I didn't agree to the architectural fences. I still want to put a chain link fence in. And then that comes to you like that, and you say, well,
Gives us a bit of
that's the
information.
issue, chain link
Talk to
fence
them about
was, as far as the local.
All right. Well,
That's
Lonnie,
the way it works.
I might be overreacting.
No, I don't know if you are or not, but I'm just saying that's.
I would just hate to see every little project get bogged down.
I mean, when I was just shut the door and Ken Wright wouldn't do it, guess who did?
You. Put something, I'll go along with it for now. I'm not saying that I agree on the institution of it. I'd like to see what the plan is. And I'd like to see
Okay.
some sort of criteria where we're not, every silly little thing. I mean, if a developer has zoning and they don't need deviations, why do they have to go out and have a community meeting? Architecturally, they should have to come to us. That's fine. That's a different story. If they're changing zoning, if they're changing use, if they're doing other things, well, maybe that's the criteria for the meeting.
That's what I was going to suggest. Let's let the staff put together, one of the things that Teresa said in the beginning was, let us customize it to Oviedo, and that's something that we've always done, is customize it to Oviedo. Yes, when they first brought it to me, that was the first thing in my head was, okay, they meet with the HOA. The HOA, one says, go away, we don't want you.
Get the NIMBY crowd.
Right, and of course, like the mayor said, it's on property that's already zoned for it, it's a permissible use, they comply with the code.
Right, and then you got your residents in here mad at you when you have to follow the code, like Lonnie just told you.
And,
You're setting yourselves up to fail.
Then the,
We're not.
you
We're
know,
setting this up to succeed because he can't come until he does that report and resolves it. And then we say, well, you didn't.
well, that's the thing, I
No,
guess.
no, 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 follow along what Brian said. You have a guy who's got zoning, he's got this, he's got
Where
that.
you're going to struggle is when he has the meeting, the HOA or the residents, if it's just that he has to go have a meeting with some people so many feet away. They come in, they make demand. First off, they tell him they don't want him. Secondly, they put demands on him that probably aren't financially feasible for him. And so then he doesn't do it. But the plans he submits to the staff is compliant. And he gives us the report like the Longwood does. He gives us a report and says, this was their list of demands. I accommodated 1 and 2, but 3 through 12 I didn't. And here's why. And so then everybody comes to here to say, we want 3 through 12. And then you become the final arbiter. But the thing about it, where you get sideways, is 3 through 12 are over and above the code. And the developer's sitting there telling you, I did 1 and 2, it's over and above the code. I meet your code.
Isn't that what we do anyway?
But Ryan,
You know.
I think even in that situation, the developer is more, he has more information to come with good arguments. You know, so I think information is always good because he also runs the risk of coming to a public hearing, expecting it to be approved, and then
If he has
finding
no
resistance at the.
variations or is not asking of any waivers or deviations, he may have a good argument. But what we always do is we trade his deviations for 3 through 12, somewhere in between.
I like
So
that.
it's just we call it best alternative to no negotiated agreement.
And
That-
then comes the other part of the process, when Teresa gets into what's on your thing here, is how does the staff become that arbiter for items that do not come before the council? And that's one of the things that we're going to have. That's why I said we need to customize it for Oviedo, because in those other cities, all projects go before the governing body. In Oviedo, we do things a little bit differently. So we would have to customize it to Oviedo to move that process. But I'd like them to have the opportunity to try to put something together and then bring it to you. If you like it, then we can go with it. If you don't like it, then we don't have to. You know, so I'd say give them the opportunity to prepare the process, and let's see how it works. And then if it's not something you're comfortable
Why
with,
do we
then
even have, why do we even have to look at this? Why can't it be as simple as, I'm building a project, I'm dropping off a packet, and if you have any problem, go to the city council meeting. I mean, that's it. I mean, I think that you're gonna, I love telling people what's gonna happen in their neighborhood, but you're basically asking HOAs and other people to make decisions that the staff and us are supposed to make. I think it's another layer, you know, because like, see this thing? I think we got too many layers here. I think we got too many people in certain boards and things looking at stuff. We're trying to make this a little easier, you know. For the last 3 or 4 years, we've come with the reputation now with you know, the building inspectors, PDCS, all that, of becoming an easy place to do business. And now we're starting to add these other layers that are going to cause people to go elsewhere.
Well,
I'm not saying
these layers have always been there.
yeah, well, but I'm just saying, I just think it's a good thing to go tell people, but maybe it should just be as simple as part of your requirement when you come in here for a permit is to make sure that a packet is dropped off to the neighborhood leaders of every community and let them know that there's going to be a hearing at city council to keep an eye on it. If they have any issue, to come here and let us deal with it. I just feel like you start getting HOAs involved. You know, Brian, you brought up a great point. 3 to 12 are not in the code, and the guy's not going to do it. He's going to get so aggravated, something that we all may want, he may go somewhere else. So look at it, whatever, you come back with something, but I mean, you got to be very careful with this.
I
really do.
I think it's got to be deviation driven, personally. Major deviations, and they've got to go. Well, put it together.
Okay. We'll try to come with something.
See what you can come up with.
Okay, so the other thing that we want to also, and we still have to come with the details, is the small-scale site development. And for that, I think we need also to do some research on the cases that we have had in free apps that people came to the city and because of the requirements that we have, they couldn't stay. And these are developments, really small type of developments, or especially the change of use, that sometimes if you want to change from, office to residence to an office in a region that is already...
That's expensive.
It is, yeah, it is expensive.
That's like 15 grand to do that.
And we have all the requirements that it would be the same for a big developer. So we have to come to some kind of, standards that make sense for a small business. So, and we'll bring that to you, but we don't have the format yet. We're still working on that.
Because we have that little neighborhood commercial type district up and down Central, but nobody can afford to convert any of them into small offices.
So that's something that we will bring to you. So the tables that we have now and you have in front of you in paper 2 are different than the ones I submitted with the memo because we had a PZA meeting. So before you had, we have different columns. So everything that is in black is the present process. Everything that is in red was recommendations from staff, and in green came from PZA. But PZA at that point have individual recommendations. So in the last work session with them last week, we asked them to come with one recommendation so that we could all work together here with one PZA having just one voice. And they ended up buying a lot of our recommendations. So everywhere that you don't see green is because they accepted our recommendation. So I'll go through quickly. The first 3 applications, the amendment, comprehensive plan, LDC, and zoning map, the only thing that we suggested was to remove DRC from the process, and they were fine with that. Then annexation petition, again, we just removed DRC. And annexation, there is not really a big discussion.
Yeah, annexation's just coming right to us, it looks like.
Yes. So that's,
Really the way it should be.
Make it quick.
make it quick. Appeal
That's the way
to,
Apopka does it. It goes right to the commission.
appeal to land use administrator decision would go to PZA instead of DRC. So that was our recommendation, and they agreed with it. Then any appeal of DRC decisions,
Wait, back up that way. Land use administrator appeal or land use administrator decision for a minimum land development code requirement. What does that mean?
well, actually, it would be any appeal, right, for the,
If the land use administrator, let's say the land use administrator denied something, they would appeal it,
On what scale?
any scale.
So
Because
what-
it would
so
be
you
within
could
his
deny,
approving
you could,
vote.
you could deny something on Oviedo on the Park,
Yeah,
and we're gonna let PZA decide whether it's gonna go or not.
well,
they
and
would hear the
then,
appeal, yes.
and
Through
then
the
they
appeal.
could appeal PZA, it will come to you. So they are not the final one. If you continue to, if you appeal to the PZA board, then it will come to you. That's how we have stages.
Okay, so somewhere it's still ending up with us.
If they appeal, if they are, okay, if they give up at a certain point, they give up. But if they want to continue
So
the
if
process,
Brian
and they
denies
lose-
them, or land use administrator denies them, and they give up, it's over with. If they appeal it, it goes to PZA
Yes,
instead of DRC,
Right.
yes.
and then comes to us.
And then if
Well,
appeal of PZA
It could
decision,
stop at PZA.
Yeah.
It could stop there.
That's what he said.
That's the problem.
That's the problem,
No,
yeah.
The reason-
appeals come to us.
The reason that I recommended that we not go to DRC is because the land use administrator chairs the DRC. And so I felt like that was a conflict, that the appeal of the land use administrator's decision is going toward a board. Now, the land use administrator can't make motions on that board, but I just felt like there was a conflict there, and so it needed to go somewhere else other than DRC.
Got to come to account. You got to bring those to us.
no, but if they appeal to PZA, it will come to city council.
Not necessarily.
Not according to this.
The table said it stops with
No,
them.
appeal of PZA decision goes to city council.
Yes, someone can appeal a PZA decision.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is that, let's say that the land use administrator denies a deviation, okay? And so then the applicant says, I'm going to appeal that. So it goes to the PZA. The PZA overturns the land use administrator's denial. It would not go further to the city council unless the land use administrator says, I'm appealing the PZA to the city council. Now, if the PZA concurs with the land use administrator's denial, then yes.
Then they would-
Just bring the appeals right to us. That's how you fix that.
That includes interpretation of the code.
yeah.
Therein lies, I'm not arguing either way, but to go to your point, who enacts the code at the council? I've always said, in Seminole County, you appeal interpretation to the Board of Adjustment, and I've always wondered, who's the Board of Adjustment? They don't enact the code, it should go straight to the county commission, but it didn't. And sometimes you have really strange results, and the county commission will say, how did that code get interpreted that way? Well, it's the Board of Adjustment. But if you want to go straight to the legislative body, you'd like it to go to the council.
I gotta be honest with you, you know, those two A's need to be moved over to the city council. I mean, really, you cannot have PZA members making that call. I don't agree with that at all.
Unless you want the language, like Ryan said, language administrator to appeal the decision of the
Yeah, but then you add another layer in, and you're just pissing the developer off even more.
puts staff in a weird situation when they're appealing the board.
I just didn't feel like the DRC was appropriate because the land use administrator sits on the
That's
DRC.
a good point, but I think, I just, I can't see them doing that.
And the other thing was is that our appeal process has always been tiered. Like you said, we put them through their paces.
All right, let's,
Do you have any?
Yeah, I wanted to just say that a lot of these types of appeals include signs. Like if it's a sign that's too large, larger than what the land development code allows, and the land use administrator denies it, it's appealed. They can't appeal it. They can appeal it to the DRC. And a lot of times it's uses as well, uses that are not identified in the land development code. And it's a use that we don't think should be allowed as a land use administrator. Those type of uses can be, those type of denials can be appealed to the DRC if the land use administrator denies it.
right, but this is appealing them to the PCA now.
Mm-hmm.
No. I'd rather see that come to the council, but I don't know what everybody else wants.
Well, let me ask you a question. If a developer goes, Brian denies it, he appeals it to the PZA, they deny it, can he appeal and come to council? He can still take it forward there?
And the way I like-
PZA approves it. Residents are now calling you about this problem,
Right.
and you had nothing to do with it.
and the way
At
I-
least before, it used to go back to staff, so staff could make an intelligent interpretation of the code.
So it doesn't go back to staff now?
No, right to PZA.
So that we would also, appeal of the DRC, we would also want that to come to council as well. Staff.
Yeah, I think
That
these
would also,
two.
you would want to also do that. Appeal of the DRC decision would also go to, I mean, when I looked at, it's called Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board, so that's why, staff's recommendation takes it to appeals. But that's not a problem.
But the issue is to streamline the decision-making process, which ultimately ends up with us, and to put the burden back on the developer to not want to come to us. If they know they're just going to PZA, they'll roll the dice and take their chances. They don't want to come to us because they know that we've got the big stick. So that actually empowers you to possibly be able to request and receive what you were asking for. They're going to PZA, no offense to PZA, but they'll look at it as a road bump, you know?
So if it's denied by the city manager, then it would come just straight to council, and we would make that decision.
Correct, but here's what'll end up happening. He'll deny it, they won't come to us, they won't want to come to us. They'll go back and have a conversation now.
Right.
And say, how can we work this out where everybody's happy?
I think it would take a lot of load off staff, and the PZA board, and kind of like streamline it a little bit more.
So the idea is to bring everything to city council. The DR.
Yeah, any appeal. No
Any
matter
appeal.
what, no matter who the body is, no matter whose body is being appealed, it'll just go to council.
Okay.
That's simple.
Yeah, bring it to us.
So appeal of PZA decision is
Put the
coming to
appeals
city
in the
council.
consent agenda with the staff recommendation.
That's the perfect idea. Right, Brian?
Sure. Fine with me.
Bonnie, look, the lawyer has a problem with that. Wait a second.
Really, Senate Bill 50 cures a lot of their ails.
I think that's a good idea. Put it there, if somebody has a problem with it, they pull it off. You get a streamline.
They get to speak, that's due process.
That's perfect.
Agendized, that's notice, opportunity to be heard, that's due process.
Absolutely.
Well, then PZA decision is already
That's
coming to,
okay.
yeah.
So, what I would like to see as we streamline this, as I said earlier, is I'd like to see us, certainly not go back to the way we used to do business. I mean, that was archaic 10 or 12 years ago, the way things used to happen around here. But, we've got it on a good trajectory right now, but what's happened is we've not lost sight, but, we've lost a little bit of control. And I think that's where the issues come up. And I like to see where we kind of just swing that a little bit back towards the council, but in a way that we don't want them coming to us, just like the original intent of the code was. The original intent of the code was you don't want to go past the 30% deviation because then you got to come in here and see them. And it's been very effective. We don't have a lot that comes in here anymore. But what's happening is that everybody's getting so creative with their 30% that they're figuring out ways to cut the corners and still not meet the absolute goals that we have. So that would be my preference as we go through this code rewrite is, keep it as streamlined as we can, keep it as flexible as we can, but where the weaknesses are in the code, such as an appeal process, such as an architectural review process, where, you need to have the leverage of the elected body, then use the elected body. Make us the roadblock. You can go in and see them, or we can just work it out here. Well, I want to meet the minimum. Well, if
Well,
you
the
see them,
architecture,
you're not going to meet the minimum, so
we
why
are
don't we just
bringing-
do that now?
For the architecture, we are bringing everything, right? So it's not them.
Councilman Schenk is here. Sign him in, Barbara.
So for development of regional impact, we didn't change anything. PUD zoning map amendment and PUD with statutory development agreement that we don't have it more, but we didn't change the process. It's still the same process. PUD with non-statutory development agreement, again, we removed PZA from the process. And that was the same thing from non-statutory development agreement and amendments. In both cases, we'll have staff, land use administrator, DRC, and then going straight to city council. statutory development agreement and amendment, we kept the
So
the
Teresa,
same process.
instead of applicants having to make 3 stops, now they're going to make 2 stops.
Yes,
Well, that'll make them happier.
DRC and city council. And PZA understood that the idea was just to streamline, so. The same thing for master land use plan. They were removed from being a recommending body. The same thing for preliminary subdivision plan. Then final plat, we removed DRC. So it's going from staff to city council.
But just final plat at that point, it's
Yeah.
done.
It's usually not,
Consent item, it's ministerial. The only reason we're doing it is statute requires it. There's no reason for DRC to have to do that. And statute requires you to do it.
so we didn't change the statutory subdivision compliant with deviations. And we removed special event permit requiring, not requiring a policy. We don't have that anymore. Special exception use order, and the same process we didn't change. Site development order for private projects, if they are compliant, we didn't change. Deviations up to 10%, we didn't change, and between 11% and 20%, we kept the same. What we changed is instead of having these 2 layers between 21 and 30% and above 30% with a development agreement, since they both would come to city council anyway, we just simplified to any deviations above 20% would come to city council.
So it's got to go through all 3.
Well,
The Rs are recommending, is that what that is?
yes, but the green is what PZA recommended. So what staff recommended is that it would have land staff recommendation, DRC, and then come straight to city council. And PZA asked to, that's their recommendation to,
So a deviation greater than 20%, it's got to go to the land use administrator, then off to DRC, then off to PZA, and then to us.
That's PCA's recommendation.
that's PZA's recommendation.
The staff recommends DRC straight to council.
On there. DRC straight to council.
Then for city, site development orders for city projects, we simplified to say compliant or with deviations. If it's compliant, staff would approve. If it has deviations, we would recommend, and it would come straight to city council. Oh, no, you wanted both, right? Compliant.
That's the way it always looks
Basically, any city project would go to council.
Would go to council,
Yeah.
yeah. Any part.
No matter.
Yeah, you're right.
basically, on a city project, we just feel like city council should approve.
Should approve
city
everything,
projects.
yes, you're right.
And so
The A is the existing process. We are proposing that everything compliant or not compliant would come to city council. So we are removing all these layers. The next, the last page, site development orders for new downtown. PZA discussed a lot this application, and they were uncomfortable with the fact that the land use administrator has all the power to approve any type of deviation, any amount, any.
Isn't that the way the development order is written?
That's how the code is written.
That's how the
Right.
code is written, yes.
Yeah, for the new downtown.
Yes.
You've got all the power.
Right.
So they propose, so these 2 colors are both from PZA. They propose that below 20%, it would come to, it would be land use administrator approval. Above that, it would be recommending staff would just recommend, and they would be the approving authority. And they did the same for building permits in the new downtown zoning. It's the last line, the last row, yeah. They kept the same, rationale.
So what was the rationale for cutting city council out of the process?
Putting
I'm
them
just,
instead of city council.
I'm just curious.
Well, I
them
think the
instead of city
rationale is
council.
because you're not approving right now. It was an opportunity for them to approve, so that another board would see, and,
They could
so they're not
recommend,
taking
we
from
can
you.
approve.
Yeah.
Give them an R and give us the,
Why would you put a third layer on the new downtown?
yeah, I guess that's true. The whole purpose of the new downtown was for the land use administrator to be able to take care of it, because the land use administrator answers to the city council. And
Were
that was-
all 7 of the PZA members present when you gave this meeting?
I think 6 were present.
6 of them?
Yeah, I don't know, you guys decide, I don't care.
I would leave it the way it is. Maybe with the land use administrator, as it is in the code. Because otherwise we're changing the code, so.
Right, because there's been many instances over the years where the land use administrator has looked at something and just said, oh, no, I'm not making that decision. Yes, I know I can, but you go in there and talk to them. I mean, that's happened
Right.
half a dozen times that I could think of. All right, so you just want to leave it the way it was?
I'm for it.
You?
Yes. Good.
Councilwoman, good, good.
What's this last? Have you gotten down to me yet, or?
No.
I'm good with that.
You shook your head. You went like this.
You're okay with the way it is?
I suppose.
Didn't you? Well, you weren't looking at him, were you?
I can assure you that if it's a deviation that's 50 to 100%, it's going to be coming to you.
So
Just
is
like
it-
we did before.
And isn't it better to put that here, or if it's a larger deviation as any
Well,
other?
I think it's one of the things where the land use administrator has that discretion.
Okay.
The sign on the building was a perfect example of a hot potato that could have been signed off by the city manager.
Exactly.
And the decision was, I'm not touching that, you bring it to them.
Okay, so it was.
And there was a
brought-
big argument over, well, you have to, and then the decision was, well, no, I really don't, you can bring it into the council.
I can say no to you right now, and you can go see if they want it.
Right, I could say no.
What building are we talking about?
Remember the big sign on the side of the Park Place Apartments?
Oh.
Remember you wanted it sideways and bigger, and Catherine could have, by this, approved that. But she told Mr. Kavanaugh that she's not touching that with a 10-foot pole, and you can go talk to council about it. And there's been other instances over the years where things like that have come up. When they had that tower with that land over the sidewalk,
And it's also one of those where, like with the sign, we brought it to you for consensus to make sure we were on the same page with you during a work session. With the icon parcels, we actually said that's a development agreement amendment, so it had to come to you as an approval. So I mean, it gives us that a lot of flexibility where we can lean on you for making sure that we're all on the same page on the city side of things. Whereas instead of mandating it in your code, it also gives us the flexibility that if we're in a jam, we need to get something moving quickly, we can react and then let you know what we did. So,
all right, we've got about 15, maybe 20 minutes before
Yes,
Councilwoman
so-
has to go.
so-
So why don't we finish up
Yeah.
this, and then I know the next one here is the dwelling units, it looks like, and a few other things.
So eminent domain, we didn't change anything. Building permit compliant and up to 20%, we didn't change the process. Again, we removed the 2 layers for the 21 and 30 and above 30. So any building permit above 20% would, we propose to go to PZA. With the recommendation of the land use administrator.
Why PZA, not council, above 20%.
You're dealing primarily with single-family residential issues there, and didn't want to
Pool
burden the
stuff
council.
and-
Yeah,
Gotcha, okay.
yeah, didn't want to burden the council with
I
single-family
understand.
residences.
Pool stuff, fence stuff,
Yes, sir.
all that
10
stuff
foot,
that,
and they need 3 feet. and
Contractors.
what was
all
the other
feet
board
they
that we
need
used
for
to
10
have?
feet of, yeah.
Board of didn't we have a Board of
Yes,
Adjustments?
sir.
That's what they used to do.
That's what they did.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this was the launching.
That's why when
Yeah.
when you said, I'm like, that's exactly it, it's beyond
Right,
stuff.
let PZA, give all of that to
Yes,
PZA.
that's fine.
Isn't that originally what we had done?
Or the arbitrator.
How many, just because I know Cindy has to leave, how many board members, I think I know the answer, but I'm asking for the record, are on the DRC?
I mean, 5.
Okay, I just want to throw this out for all your discussion. Does anybody have any interest in making the PZA a 5-member board? And the reason I bring it up is because as I look at attendance records for 2 years, I think 7-member boards are very inefficient. I think it also lets some of them know that it's okay for me not to be here. And as I look at 2 years' worth of attendance, you know, I lean on the PZA a lot. When they make a decision, there's very talented people up there. I read it very closely, and I do it. But, you know, when you see people missing 2 or 3 meetings and things like that, that's not the only reason. I just think a 5-person board, and this is the time to adjust it now while we're doing the code, I think it'd be easier for staff. The DRC's 5, we're 5. Why do they need 7 people? And, you know, I'm just throwing it out for discussion. I'm not saying we have to do it, but does anybody see a reason why we need to keep 7 members on there? Why it couldn't be streamlined to 5? I mean, does staff have any thought on it? I think they're more efficient. They're held more accountable if there's 5. Their attendance is better. They read their book better. They're not leaning on, you know, there's a lot of people up there. You don't have to be as accountable, you know, and they're as important as everybody else is. So I just wanted to bring it up because I talked to Brian a little bit about it. Now would be the time if we wanted to change them to 5 too. And I just wanted to throw that out for you all, just to weigh in on what you think.
I say keep it at 7.
Haven't thought about it, so don't know.
Only because it is one of the only venues we have left where we can appoint citizens to give us input. If we start reducing that, then.
But we have no citizens applying, like nobody's applying for boards. There's one
We
guy.
have one guy.
Yeah, one guy, but Barbara has been advertising for board members for years, and we can't get boards. That also makes it a little bit more prestigious.
I think if we wanted to, then we could get applicants.
I think we think it all through. I just think a 7-member board is not efficient. It's just not. Two of your 3 boards looking at all this stuff are 5-member boards.
I take your point to heart. I think attendance is an issue, and we need to put the pressure on those that are active members, either come to the meetings or resign, and because I think there's a lot of people that are chomping at the bit to become involved with these types of things. You know, whether it's the Civic Center or the PZA or a lot of stuff. There's a lot of folks out there that are happy with what we're doing, but they'd like to be involved a little bit more.
Well, why don't we look at it from a different perspective? You know, it's odd that they have 3-year terms. We have 2-year terms. Why don't we just cut it back to a 2-year term and stagger them? That way there's more opportunity for people to fall off the board if they want.
Yeah,
They don't have to
if
feel
they're not
as
performing, we
obligated.
could kind of,
Good point.
Aren't they staggered now for your terms?
Yeah, it's
they're
kind of like,
staggered, but they're not, they're 3 years.
When we
That's
started
a
it,
good point. Maybe we should make ourselves 3
1, 2,
years.
and 3. But well, that was going to be my next thing. You know, a 3-year commitment for a volunteer may be very long.
right, you know, and then they feel obligated because they were just reappointed. You know, where if you do 4 get appointed 1 year, 3 get appointed the next year, similar to what we do, 3-2, that gives somebody the opportunity maybe to gracefully bow out and say, you know, my situation has
It's 2
changed.
and 3. You know, that's what we do now.
Well, just some thoughts, but the thing that I just want to...
Yeah, I think that's what they do now.
The thing I just want to bring up, and I don't mind saying it, there are some members on the PZA board that think it's okay to miss meetings all the time. They're habitual. When you look at their records, it's habitual. If they don't want to be on the board, just tell us they don't want to be on the board. But, you know, I have spoke to the chairwoman of this board who has vented her concerns that people are coming, not reading their book, they're not showing up, they're missing multiple meetings. That's got to stop. If these people want to be on this board and they want to recommend to us who have to make decisions, they need to show up. And somebody needs to, whoever's running them, to just tell them, you know, obviously if something comes up, you have to miss a meeting. We all do. 2 out of 3 meetings gotta stop, you know? And it's very impressive for somebody when all 7 of them there, when the guy's coming in, he was laid all this money out for his permits and stuff that he's getting, he doesn't see 3 or 4 or whatever they can, or 4 for the quorum, but, you know, they just need to tighten it up a little bit. I still like 5 better, because I think they'd be more efficient, but if you're not all there, then just something I'd throw out.
The message to staff, I think we should maybe as a body authorize Catherine to send a letter out. And express our
Authorize who?
Authorize who?
Kathy. The
Kathy
chairman of
Morris.
the-
She expressed it publicly in one of the
Okay.
PCA meetings, that request, you know,
I knew what
asking,
he meant.
asking the other members to be more participative, you know, read the material
Can I
in
make-
If they don't
advance.
respond, then we have a
She
data
did that.
point.
She can recommend to us that we throw them off.
Yeah.
That's all.
Can I make a suggestion? Why doesn't that letter come from the 5 of us?
Huh?
Why doesn't that just come from the 5 of us?
It could. I'm
You know,
just saying, you know, she's the
and
chairman,
more,
we can-
more along the lines of, you know, we really do appreciate your service, thank you for your service. And, you know, we just have to ensure complete attendance and,
That's
you know,
fine.
everybody,
Dude, I went 2 years ago into Boston and back and only missed, you know, I never missed more than 2 meetings, or more than 1 meeting in a row.
Right.
I missed meetings, but
There's some
I
very,
managed to get back.
Never consecutive. You
Yeah.
never missed consecutive meetings.
there's a couple
Well,
things I
I
spoke
think
to Brian,
Kathy's
there's a couple
supposed
things I spoke
to
to Brian
inform
about.
us, and then we
Right.
should respond.
Couple
I
things
agree
I-
with the mayor, we should respond. Write a letter from all of us, just, I
to
would write
all
a
of them.
general letter at this point to all of them. Attendance is very important, we feel that it's a great service to the community, blah, blah, blah.
you're all community leaders, or
And I
whatever.
also asked
You know,
Brian.
if anything gets in
we
the
can
way,
step
please
them
let
into
us
the-
know, but
If we can step them into the 21st century, you know, one of the complaints I got was it was hard for them to get their book. They were still getting paper. They shouldn't even have paper. It's on the website. They can go look at it. There should be no excuse for not, well, I didn't get my book because the police station isn't open, the cabinet's not there. Well, it's right there. So Brian is looking into putting laptops up there so they can all have it when they go. We really shouldn't be printing books anymore.
We promised that next meeting, they will have
Just get them
laptops.
into the 21st
Well-
century.
Well, how would they review it beforehand?
You go on the web.
It's on the web.
We can look at it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
post it on the web.
Okay.
Wait,
We
wait.
post 1 week in advance.
Why can't we just send them a link to the agenda, like you send us? Why can't we just email them on the Wednesday or Thursday before their meeting, here's your link to the agenda?
It's on the web. What they need
That's
to
what you
link
do.
For-
That would be it. We would send them. the
Because
link
then they
to the
feel
website.
special.
well, I don't have computers, but then the other things.
Right, and then up here, then they'll have,
We do, right?
Now, is there anyone who doesn't have a computer that they wouldn't have access to a link?
any of the
Not
members.
that we know
If that's a
of,
problem,
yeah.
then I can.
If there is, I think provide them a loaner.
Give them one.
Have them come in here, look at it, or provide them a loaner, they can take it home, bring it back to the meeting.
You should have some hanging out up there. There should be no excuse for not reading the book.
If we can provide them a link to the agenda, you know, here, PZA members, your agenda is now ready. Barbara's shaking her head, why not?
Yes.
Okay, but, all right,
I know
All
what
right,
you're saying there. I got it.
Like she does with us.
okay,
the agenda's ready.
let me put this in another perspective to everybody. No, let me re-perspective this. You're a member serving the city of a volunteer board, and you're being told that, oh, by the way, your agenda, you can just go grab it on the web whenever you want it. You know, why aren't we sending them a link, sending them an email, saying, hey, PZA board, your agenda is now ready, here's the link to it. Even if the link takes them to the website, doesn't matter.
We need to personalize it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that's a good idea.
that's all I'm getting
Barbara
at.
does it with us now. We get it, you know, your
I don't get a link
agenda.
early.
Huh?
I don't get a link early.
Wednesday you do.
I wasn't here, I don't have my computer today.
Somebody send, I will send you a personalized email every
Well, I
Wednesday.
want the link to download it on my computer.
All righty, thank you, guys.
We're
All right,
way on
next,
top of it.
accessory dwelling units.
I'll make
And, you
sure.
know, when you write that letter, I don't know if you want to put it, but, you know, there are some people who are coming up. If some people can't do it anymore, because I think there may be one or two that have other commitments that came up, oh my God, I just got a point, tell them it's okay. We're not going to hold, we appreciate their service. If they can't make it, don't stay there when you know you really can't make it.
We don't need to say that, because then they're going to interpret that as
They
you're
have
trying
to
to
do
kick.
Well, you didn't say it, I said it.
They'll interpret it by the letter.
Just for the record, the mayor did say it, Hank had said it. If they can't make it and they want to get off, just tell us. Simple as that. I mean, and I will tell each 7 of them, I was gonna go to their meeting last week when I saw that attendance. So,
Councilwoman only has maybe 10
right,
minutes.
go ahead.
Accessory dwelling units are probably more important than,
Okay, so just the last one, the building permit for city projects, compliant, staff approves, any deviations, staff recommends, and city council approves.
make it all come to us.
This is only
This is,
stuff of regular-
this is city project.
Perfect.
So accessory dwelling units. I'll try to go quickly. Well, these are the names that they are also called, and the definition that we researched and got is dwelling units attached to or included within a principal dwelling unit or located on the same lot having independent means of access. Such unit may include a full kitchen, and that's really what identifies it as an independent unit.
Is there such a thing as a carriage house in New York?
Sorry?
Is there such a thing as a carriage house in New York?
Well, it's still the name, but
Mother-in-law suite?
It's a
I never heard of a granny flat.
no.
different
That's,
term.
Is that
that's,
where you put granny?
yeah. That's like a Queens and a Brooklyn thing, little granny flats.
The
They're like little
benefit.
tiny apartments.
So these would be the benefits. First, it helps with the demographic change. I mean, people are living longer, so there is the idea that people should age in place, and so the accessory dwelling units would help that. And that data that there just shows that the percentage of people with more than 65 years old is increasing, also in Oviedo. It's increasing everywhere. So that would allow,
It's called a wrap-up work session attachment one.
this would allow for greater neighborhood stability because people could stay in their neighborhood. It also has the advantage of reducing sprawl because it increases density. It may also increase the amount of affordable housing if that is also policy that we want to address. Because if you can rent the accessory unit, then you could have additional income. So you could help first-time buyers qualify for mortgage. And this is all from literature. For us, it's a comprehensive plan-approved policy. So it requires regulation.
So you can take an attached garage on a house right now and take the door off and make it nice and put a...
We cannot because we don't have the standards to regulate that in the Land Development Code. But we have a policy in the complaint, so we have to regulate it. We have to come up with some standards. What kind of standards and how broad and how flexible and how, how you would like to approach it, that's a different thing. But we need to regulate the accessory dwelling units. The way we have written in the complaint, and this is policy 1-112.1, the city shall provide for granny flats, mother-in-law suites, accessory apartments, and other forms of ancillary units as permitted uses in residential and mixed-use areas without the need for special exception use orders. So it is already telling us that it is a permitted use and it doesn't need to go to a special exception use order.
We already have that policy.
We have, and that was approved in 2010. Thank you, Lisa. Important considerations. We try to get all the issues that from the literature to come and bring to you. So usually we would establish a maximum of 1 per lot. The other thing that we discussed, that the lot should be compliant. We are not allowing an additional unit in a lot that is not compliant. Cannot be sold separately or it does not exist independent from the main unit or before the main unit. So it only exists and can be permitted as an additional, as an accessory structure.
Does it have to be attached to the house?
Not necessarily,
No,
but
okay.
that means that you cannot sell it. You cannot,
Yeah, okay.
divide the lot. That would not.
And it can't have its own utilities.
That's the other thing that it's.
Goes with the same
yeah, we can discuss that.
So can I just clarify, so can someone take their existing garage in a regular single-family home as a garage, where they put their car, and take that door off and make the front, whatever they want, and make that a room?
I would say no, because you're using the parking.
They do it now, an attached garage.
They can build on top of the garage.
But you still have to have a place to park the car.
Well, if that was the requirement of the Land Development Code to have, parking for the unit, you should not be able to.
I know.
Depends on the use.
Several people
Convert.
have done that to their garage.
I know they do.
I can
And we
take
have-
you around
It's
100 of them in
required.
Alafaya right now, if you'd like
If
to.
it's required, then you're supposed to keep the garage, then you can't do it.
The
But
guy
some
up the street from
places-
me just did it.
You're
But you can
supposed
build a
to,
garage and then close that room off.
the Land Development Code does require 3 parking spaces, off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit, so they would have to show us that by enclosing the garage, they could still provide 3 parking spaces in the driveway.
As long as they can park in the driveway.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you could do it, as long as
You
you're
could.
parking
If
on
you
your
have
own lot.
parking,
Right, so he
spaces.
must-
Right, gotcha.
That's what he did.
And not blocking the sidewalk.
Not blocking the
Right.
sidewalk. And pursuant to HOA rules, then besides that, that's the other side of
Three
it.
of them.
He didn't change any ARC.
Other than this in the land development code,
Well, our RAC doesn't allow it. It's specifically written, if the HOA says you
I understand the intent. I mean, the elders can stay. I just don't want to see it turn into Long Island. These little accessory apartments are everywhere. I mean, I used to own 3 of them, with multiple family houses, and they were all single family at the beginning, but ground floor was one, middle and top, and, and that's what they turned into. So, as long as this is written in a way where it's really just for grandma or an accessory,
No,
not,
you're always
Kids
gonna
will
have the
come
issue
home.
where we live, you're gonna have a college kid in there, or two.
Yeah, we will discuss that in the next
So we have
page.
the boarding house rule, if you got a college kid living in the back and you don't.
Yeah,
violate
more
It
the
says you have to live here
family rule.
first, that's the first thing, is owner has to live on site. So that cuts, and then there's only a maximum of 1 dwelling unit.
and that's all fine. I'm just talking off the top of my head.
Oh, I
Right.
agree with you, I understand where you're going, it's, right when he said garage, I'm like, well, that does open up an interesting.
Why, that's the
Yeah.
question. A lot of
I know
people
there are
don't do
some
that.
that are out there that are probably technically almost all illegal in reality.
Oh, and there's tons of them. I
And there's
mean,
tons of them, I'm not denying that.
how many
there's
houses I
out
walk
there.
into every day that, right in the MLS, it says garage has been converted without permits. So,
I can tell you, in the past, because our comprehensive plan didn't allow it, you could only have 1 dwelling unit on the lot, okay? So then it came down
they
to
just
what
leave the
constitutes a
garage
dwelling
covered,
unit.
that way you can't tell.
And trying to help these folks, Oviedo's different from everywhere in Florida because the children came first and the parents came second, okay? And so the parents are coming in, they want to expand their home to allow their parents to live with them, but they wanted to give their parents their own place. And so what we ended up having to do is basically a dwelling unit has a full kitchen. So it's got a stove and a refrigerator, and that was a full kitchen. So when they would make these, we had to tell them you have to do it as an addition to your home, and you can't put a full kitchen in there. And so a lot of places, that's what we ended up doing, because they did not want to do a special exception for this extra unit. And so that's how we worked with people, was that they would add on to their house. It would be like a master bedroom with a bathroom, and then they would put in a microwave and whatever, but there was only
A little
one.
efficiency kitchen.
Yeah, there was only one kitchen, one true kitchen in the house, and then we could say that's 1 dwelling unit. The comprehensive plan now allows us to have we could actually have 2 separate dwelling units on the property. And one of the things that we're looking at is, yes, we want to preserve the single-family nature of the neighborhood. That's very important. But if you have a garage and there's an apartment above the garage, then yeah, it should be able to have a bathroom and a kitchen in it. And yes, you could have someone that could rent that out, or it could be for a family member. But the property owner has to be the property owner's main place of residence, is what we're looking for. At least that's what I think where staff was going, is that
Yeah.
you've got to maintain that as your single-family residence. You bring up a good point. It shouldn't be a rooming house where a property owner goes in, lives in 1 bedroom, and rents out all the others. It shouldn't be that way. You know, and
Right,
so-
or it starts off that way, a property owner moves, they rent the bottom, now they got two incomes coming in and off the house, so there has to be some sort of reverter in here, where, you know, if that's what happens, and we find out, and you get code enforced,
Right.
you know, you lose your accessory apartment permit or whatever, however you do it.
Yeah, and these are all issues, how to put that in the deed, right? The restrictions.
Rob, think of issues with lenders.
Right.
I'm not sure you'll ever, you have a reverter, creates issues with lenders. I mean, once the use is there, it's out of the bag, that's the problem.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Well, that's what we have to be careful of, or else you're gonna have neighborhoods in the city that are at tipping points now, tip even further.
Oh, I think in Tallahassee, your proximity to UCF, and there's a lot of them. I see it here in Tallahassee with students.
Yeah, you could,
Once the primary owner is transferred or leaves, somebody dies, now you have a new purchaser for the house and the unit. It's a great idea.
And that's another thing, is the regulation of it, and then having to regulate it and code enforce it and be on top of
As long
every
as
sale.
we
and-
do have rooming house regulations on the number of families, separate families that can
We
live
do.
under a roof, and if we comply with that, what is it, 2 or 3, Brian?
Three separate
Three.
families.
You know, I'd almost want to reduce it to 2.
well, two in this type of a district,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. That's a good idea.
So that, you know, you don't have, you know, you might have a kid there as a caretaker, not being going to school, whatever, but he can serve as a caretaker to an older couple living in the main residence, but he's not living there with his scrapbrokers. That's a good idea.
Why don't, if we can all just stop for a quick second, why don't we let the councilwoman ask any questions that she has? Or-
I don't have questions at this point, no.
Okay.
It's good discussion and lots to think about.
Did you have any questions on the visual preference survey before you had to go?
I did.
Well, why don't you take a moment?
Okay. Just that I read the comments that people gave, and it seemed that they really liked the tradition, colonial, country look more than like a lot of glass, modern-looking buildings. And so when you do this, you're going to take all that into consideration of what the people want, correct?
Yeah, that's
Of
the
what
idea,
they like.
yes.
Okay. And I can't think of any more on the top of my head. right
Actually, I'll give you the funniest thing before you leave that I read into it. We don't want the city to grow, but we don't have enough services. So,
Oh, yeah, it shows the,
I always like
Keep it the
that.
same,
Yes,
don't grow
barrel.
anymore,
Right.
but we want restaurants, or we need this to work.
Okay,
and-
don't
we don't
grow
want anyone
anymore,
coming in
but
from
we
the
don't have enough
outside.
places to shop. We need,
Yes.
don't grow anymore, but we need restaurants. Don't grow anymore.
Although what I did get out of some of that I can remember is what I've been saying, and every developer that I talk to, I say, more space with these houses. And that's what people want. They want that more space. They don't want to be, the neighborhoods on small lots.
I am going to disagree with the survey, because here's what the inventory we're missing here in this city. And Winter Springs is smacking home runs with it right now. Go drive in the new Meritage
Yep,
development.
I have.
And they've got a whole mixed use of lot sizes within the same community. And they're building a Standard Pacific is building another one right next to it. So what they're doing is they're doing like 28-foot wide houses on 35-foot wide lots. Then they're doing, 50-foot wide lot stuff. Then they're doing 70-foot wide lot stuff. And then they're doing 80-foot wide lot stuff.
And that's what I mean, that they're more of a variety.
Correct. Yeah,
Not just going with the 50, 60-foot lots, but a variety, because everybody likes something different.
And that's the biggest weakness that we have when somebody's, looking for something that's on a smaller lot, they don't have a lot of lawn to take care of, but they still, 2,000 square foot, we don't have a lot of that.
and it showed, there was one comment that said specifically that I want to I don't want to move from Oviedo, but I want to,
Was that yours?
No, I've told them, you know, they've seen the examples
Yeah.
I said, close community, you know, homes, small lots wrapped around an open lawn space, you don't have it.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have, because I just got sent the
We
site
have
plan.
How Shall We Grow type concept?
Right.
Got some homes around, here's an open shared lot, and
Yeah.
homes around it. And then another one, another.
Next time you're up there behind the
Overland Park
McDonald's
has one
on
small-
Tuscaloosa, just drive back there on 434
Yeah, I've been
Tuscaloosa
there.
Drive. Drive back there, there's the Meritage community, just drive through it.
They have those villas with a driveway in the back,
Back.
the street in the back, yeah, it's
And
really
then,
nice.
then you start to go to the outside, and the outside is ringed with the larger lots. And Meritage is building their basic
Yeah, large,
McMansions.
large common areas, smaller lots.
yeah,
Oh, they got
that's,
a lot of common areas.
that's Baldwin Park too. I mean, that's
Baldwin
the
Park
same
is-
concept, a lot of
And that one,
different.
there's one area involved in park that's exactly.
That's
They
the
have-
concept they've been advocating for, 10 years now?
Yeah,
But that even helps with, I think it helps with this, because then you have people, again, who are looking, I can't afford to buy this,
Right.
but I'd like this to
And
be
you don't want
close
to
to
mow
my.
that big yard like
I
I
really
do.
don't specifically want to be living with Keith, but,
Right, but
and he
if you
doesn't
find
want
a
his
little place
maid
and-
mom living with him, but
Yeah.
close to
You
my.
know, we don't, what we don't have
Or my
is
dad.
a more, inventory we're missing are larger executive style homes. You've heard me say that before. And the other one that we're missing is newer 2,000 square foot homes. You know, if somebody wants 2,000 square foot or under, there's plenty of older communities or established communities that have it, but you don't have that neoclassical look here in our city. So that's just food for thought. It is what it is.
Well, I apologize, I did promise I would
No.
go to that meeting and try to help, so.
Good luck.
thank you.
Let me do a
Where are they
process
holding
check.
it?
How long do we have left here? Because I've got some issues I gotta take care of before the government shuts down.
I did, that's what I'm going, are you getting those like
It
last
is
minute?
up
We're
to you
trying to-
if you want to cover just accessory
three more
units.
hours.
We have just one or two slides.
Let's cover that, and then we'll do a quick run through, very quick,
Okay,
on
okay,
visual preference, and then
okay,
we'll call it a night.
okay.
Because Keith wants to know where his paycheck's coming from tomorrow.
Oh, I already know where it's not coming from.
Cindy, where's the meeting? The sidewalk?
The school. on the-
Oh, the community center, or cop center, Brian?
Cop Center.
Cop center.
So it can be,
That's the sidewalks. No, excuse me, one second, Teresa. They're putting in the school sidewalks.
sidewalks over by-
And these
yeah,
people
yeah,
are having a heart attack because they don't want sidewalks.
I got it, if I remember that.
Let the little varmints go running Clark Street.
Yeah, I know. I got it, I remember now.
so the accessory units can be attached or detached. We will also have to make it a disclaimer somewhere that mobile homes are not accessory dwelling units. One of the things that we consider the owner must live in the own property. The same architectural treatment as the house, so that would also change our process for building permitting for residentials, because usually we don't check architecture, but we would request them to come with plans showing that the accessory unit has the same treatment as the house. It would require one additional off-street parking. It can be in the driveway, but still we would require that. We would also require proof that there is capacity as to water, wastewater, and drainage. And the same address, so we wouldn't, that was a question that we wouldn't allow them to have a different address. It would be connected to
It's
the,
not going to be 112 and 112A.
not for us, right? They could do that internally if they want, I don't know, but we would consider one address, right?
It's
And-
something we'll have to work out with the county 911. They may come back and say, no, you've got to do two. We really think our purpose should be, it's accessory to the principal structure, it's off the principal structure's accessory.
Right, because that'll eliminate the ability to get a second meter. If you let them get a second address, they can go get a second meter.
Right.
And the same electrical and water meter, so that would be also attached to the. For us, it is a permitted use in residential and mixed-use areas. So we don't have the question of exceptional, special exception use order. We have a question if, who will be the user? We want to limit to be relative or non-relative, and also how we enforce that, because that's, in all those standards, we have to think that it has to be enforceable. So my personal opinion is that we should, if we want to avoid the students, we have to tackle the problem the students bring instead of not allowing students. That's my point of view. So we can brainstorm and say, what kind of issues would they bring? Is that additional parking? Is the parking on the street? So we would regulate that.
That's how we enforce it now. It's a number of family rules and the parking requirement. That's how we usually catch them, to be honest with you, is the parking, and then we go in there and find out there's 3 different families under one roof, and that is the deal. Of course, if no one knows they're in there,
And if they don't create problem, that's
the
no
don't ask,
problem.
don't tell type thing.
So that's,
I've seen that happen. Kids have been good to the neighborhood. No one knew they were there. They weren't having wild parties. No one cared. No one said anything.
Well, right now we have 3, right? You can have 3 different last names in the house. No more than that, right? 3. That's what the code says now.
It's actually 3 unrelated.
3 unrelated
Unrelated,
now.
yeah.
You used to make it 2.
Well, I was thinking that for when we have the adjacent units, so that you don't have 2 frat brothers living in the granny hut and the family living inside. So that's one way.
Right.
You can almost go down, based on the definition Brian gave me, you can go down to 1 because
Well, I was going to read that to you. This is how we define family. It says one or more persons related by blood, marriage, or adoption, exclusive of family servants, occupying a single dwelling unit, and living as a single household unit as distinguished from a group occupying a boarding house, lodging house, hotel, motel, fraternity, or sorority. A number of persons not exceeding 3, occupying a dwelling and living as a single household unit, though not related by blood, marriage, or adoption, shall be deemed to constitute a family. So you could have up to 3 non-relateds. When you exceed 3, then you've exceeded the definition of family. Now you're into boarding house, rooming house, those types of things.
It's a single household.
yeah. And what I've seen is brother and sister in there with two other friends, so they have 4 or 5 in there, but 2 of them are related, so they didn't violate the over 3 rule.
Very slippery.
That's pretty rare.
we can also regulate the size, and most cities do regulate minimum and maximum size for the unit. And we can regulate in just one number or a relationship, a relationship of the original size of the house, so the 50% of the main floor of the primary house, something like that. So cities have different criteria, but we should regulate square footage too. The impact fees, we have to, it's another way to regulate, so how we are going to approach that, if it's going to be multifamily or duplex rates, the setback. So we have a lot of standards that we can use to make it, to allow it, but not make it so easy that it would, pop up in every condition, right? Setbacks and open space and height would be the same as the principal house, or we could impose a higher setback. The approving authority, we would have to decide that. We also... It's
It's going
okay.
to be
Yep.
so tightly.
If that's consensus.
Yeah,
We're okay with
that's okay for us.
Well, someone's got to do. You don't want them coming to us, do you?
I don't know what I want yet. I'm way not even close to knowing what. This ain't even close on the radar.
All right,
This is
never
way out
mind.
here on a blip
Okay, I
on
jumped
my-
ahead.
The other considerations that are we going to allow deviations or not? Some cities do not allow deviations. They already consider that this is a kind of flexibility from the city, so they don't allow deviations when they are building accessory units. And another thing that we saw in literature is that units above garages, that we should have some regulations as to privacy. So if you have,
I would look at that, to me, I think we need more input from the HOAs. I would start talking to the HOAs and bring them to have these guys in the HOAs sit down and start getting some feedback. A representative from ION, a representative from the HOAs, and invite them in and start seeing their concerns.
We have the President's HOA coming up on the 24th. I'll mention this to them.
I would mention it and see if that happened. I'm trying to get them in to get their feedback from all the HOAs. Because each one's going to have a lot of them are going to have different views. Some are going to have, we already have it in a different format possibly here. Some are going to, I don't want it. Some are going to, we'd love to have it. But, I don't know which is the best way to go. I kind of look at this and go, we do already, I know we have units. People are doing it illegally, semi-legally, however you want to put it out there.
People already
Well, you do have the
that have
setback
blown out the whole
requirements.
top of their house.
Well, and no
Most
deviations.
yards, there's not a whole lot of room.
Well, and no deviations at all. So that's why I look at this and go, with no deviations, vertical is where you're gonna, so that kind of dissuades and changes and helps corral in a lot. But I'd rather start getting some input from some of these groups and see what they think versus, hey, this is how we all think. It sounds like a good idea, and do this, 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 and this. And you got multiple groups that are thinking wildly differently, and they may not. They all may be along the same lines. I don't know. This is what I'd rather have some input on.
We're going to take our time with this one.
okay.
It's been out there a while. I'd rather take my time and do this one,
It just, Teresa, becomes a slippery slope. It becomes,
like you said.
like I said earlier, Long Island and.
I know guys that are renting out their garage, like on Long Island, they rent out their garages because somebody wants, hey, I got my car, I want to keep it and store it inside, and they rent garage space, so they rented out the garage to somebody, renting out the house, splitting that to two other people. The renters don't use the garage, that's, it starts getting, like you said, a little bit slippery and.
I can give you a perfect example, and granted, this wasn't we had a family over in one of the neighborhoods off Lake Jessup. We learned about this during Faye. They had built a garage, detached garage, 2 stories.
Oh, I know that one.
And it wasn't an accessory unit. It was their room for their son. Is basically what it was. And the combination of the 2-story detached garage plus the septic system, or new septic system, plus the topography of the property caused all the rainwater to run onto the neighbor's property. And of course, the location of the septic tanks in the neighbor's property caused it even worse. And but that's one of the things about looking at these
They built that
Teresa-
unpermitted, didn't they? Was that a totally unpermitted building or something?
No, it's permitted.
Okay.
It was permitted. But the thing that Teresa mentioned was setbacks become very important. Do we require it to meet the house setbacks, or do we give it its own level of setbacks by saying this is accessory? Like with swimming pools have their own setback requirement. You don't have to meet the same as the house. And so that's one of the things that we're going to have to figure out is how do we locate these things on the property? So we may be coming to you saying this is going to have a different setback requirement. Then you get into okay, we can be strict and say no deviations to this. So that there's going to be things that they're going to have to bring to you, but citing them is going to be very important because we got into that one situation in that one neighborhood where the topography caused a problem when we had a very, very, very heavy rain. And so, we were able to work it out, but that's something that we're going to have to take a look at too.
The article that I included in as an attachment has some visuals, right? How can we reach an accessory unit? How can we have it? So that's the kind of thing that we also can, formulate here to show, well, these are the things that we will allow. These are the things that we will not allow, and regulate based on that. So that's all for, I think. Now we've come to the visual preference survey. And I'll go quickly. Yeah. The visual preference survey was very interesting, right? We had 540 people that responded, 181 comments, and most of them were from residents, and it showed the age group
How do
there.
we determine if they're residents? They just have to check a box?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not scientific.
That's a good point. This research is not scientific, so we
That's okay.
cannot.
It's a
It's
general
not sample.
preference.
Yeah, it was not, statistically, we cannot use that to say that this represents the city of Oviedo. But it was just a way to say, a channel for people to communicate with us, tell us what they want, and provide comments. So we are not basing that as a scientific research. So that was a good point.
Not a statistical set.
No, not random, not, so that was not the objective anyway. But we had a good turn over, right? So that was a good thing that we got from them. I got the comments and I broke them into different categories, and they are very interesting. And basically there is this struggle between people that don't want development and people that want development. And I think what was...
Teresa, how long have you been here?
Yeah, that's been
yeah,
going on
well,
for
that's
20 years.
it's pretty clear, and that's not a problem. I think what we came out of it is that people want amenities. They don't want it everywhere. They want it in the corridors. I think they want it in the defined area.
But then they complain, but then the funny thing is they complain about the corridors. So the corridors are 434, Mitchell Hammock, Old Downtown, 426, and then they'll...
Yeah, the other
catch-22.
interesting thing is that they complain about traffic, but they also resist when we offer additional alternative routes.
Widenings
We
or
have-
either one of those either.
We have to build alternative routes, so we have to connect these neighborhoods. So when they come with a lot of cul-de-sacs, that's a problem for us, because
You planners are-
we are again...
You planners are all the same. Leave that alone. Next.
So that's the thing. Architecture, they want the old feel, they don't want glass, they don't want the very modern look. And when we say desired materials, actually, I started putting I didn't complete, it was not only brick. They want textures. They want a mixture of, and they are okay with stucco.
I saw something or a comment or an observation of yours that said more stone, less stucco or something.
But
They didn't mind
the
the mix.
pictures, that was one comment. But when you see the pictures they liked when they had, if you had stucco with other stuff, it was okay. So they want the texture, the different textures. They don't want one kind of element. And even the picture with only one brick also did not score high, because it was just one element. So they want many elements. City character, that was a big one. A lot of preserve the old downtown feel, or the old town feel, keep it country, keep it family-oriented, and they provide a lot of good examples. I was surprised to see how Waterford Lakes was always referred as, don't do that. Don't come with Waterford Lakes.
It's not so much the concept, it's the way they do it.
The concept too, people didn't like the fact that it's not inviting, that it's,
pain in the neck to
yeah,
get out there.
you have to walk through
You know how much
parking.
cheaper it is to build that than it is
Space.
to build them all, though?
Yeah, we know.
The rents are half.
But you could have the same concept in a more humanized way, and that's what we,
Put boulevards
yeah.
and pedestrian-friendly
Yes.
stuff out of
And
Waterford.
benches,
You take
yeah.
your hands when you walk around.
Winter Park
And
Village.
shade,
You can make it Winter Park
yeah.
Village versus Waterford
Exactly,
Lakes.
exactly, yeah.
Same two-story
So-
store, one-story
That's
store.
true. I mean, I'm not disagreeing. It's just that as a retailer, when I used to do that, it's half the rent and 10 times the traffic as a mall. So,
And avoid New York and Miami, I like that. Don't bring New York.
Especially New York.
Yeah.
Hey,
And keep the chickens. No, it's quite funny because we're not trying to imitate New York in any way. So
everyone
that's-
insists that Brian's down there killing the chickens at night, so.
We're blaming him.
They just blame the city manager and the fire chief.
I
so.
was surprised too with,
And Mr. Jackson just says, ooh.
With the amount of references to the chicken, I mean, keep the chicken in the logo, it's our personality.
Mr. Jackson.
That was,
No, we gotta keep the chickens.
economic development, there were a lot of
You know, it
comments.
is what it is, that's our image, but we don't have to, we can do something creative.
With the chicken, yeah.
Mean boxing chicken.
For economic development, there were a lot of comments, and
They were good.
and there was this general idea that target development to infill spaces. Why are we cutting trees, you know, and if we still have a lot of vacant places in the city? So there was this thing that we won't develop it, but it has to be targeted to areas that are already developed. More upscale restaurants, that was something that came, several comments. No more gas stations, there wasn't one
Amen
comment.
to that. You
Yeah.
know where that one came from.
And
I got Wawa going in on the goat farm. He doesn't know yet, though.
help small
It's
businesses,
not happening.
It's a super Wawa.
provide incentives, that kind of thing. And
62 pumps.
With a parking garage in the back.
Sorry, Teresa.
And I will make a copy of those comments to also give to John Jones, because that's,
Not happening.
it is interesting for him also to be aware of everything that came out.
55-plus development to retire in Oviedo. That would be something ideal if we can get that down in Oviedo on the park. A nice tower, a condo-type
That
tower.
was interesting, yeah, and
Yeah, anything. You just, you know, like they have in Winter Park, you know, they've got those 6-story towers and they all got a little condo.
I can tell you the retirement dollar is what a lot of cities are going after now. Actually, the state of Tennessee, I know this because I have several friends working there, and the state of Tennessee has actually made it, they want to replace Florida as the retirement capital.
They're working at it.
And they're working
Those ads
hard on it.
those
They're
retirement homes.
working very hard. They're going to trade shows, and my friend in Tennessee, that's a majority of his job is he goes to trade shows, promoting his city,
Get rid of the cold weather and
and,
the slippery driveways.
you know,
They're competitive.
getting retirees to come there because they spend money.
See now, that guy is doing something that I've been asking John Jones for a year, to let some contingent of this council make a list of what we want here and go out to wherever we need to go and promote it. It never happens, but they're doing it in your all city and it's working. See, it's a good idea.
But
We
yeah,
should have a list of what we want here, what companies we want, what businesses, what we want, and some group of us should be going and talking to them. Nobody comes unless you go get it. You have to go get it.
And corporations are doing the same, because these are the people that have money, right? And they are living longer, and they have money to spend, so that's the,
but that's why I think so. You have to put it to be up, you know, yes, we're a communities for a lifetime, which is good. We have that designation, but the thing is, you have to put the infrastructure in. Our infrastructure right now is not really geared for that age group, but that's what we would have to do.
Not geared for what?
That older age group, our infrastructure.
Because of the lack of sidewalks and pedestrian or
That,
public transportation?
once the ER opens, obviously we'll be better on the medical side. Well, I mean, because we're so oriented to the automobile, they don't drive well, you know. So, providing them communities where they got everything right there. in
it's
one spot.
self-sustained, yeah, that they can go to a grocery or.
Our recreational facilities are more geared toward the younger generations.
How
than
do
the
we,
older.
how would we address that boundary between older and 50,000 younger kids that are there? I know there's gonna be a natural confluence between those two groups. Has there been anyone that's been able to crack that nut at another university town?
I don't know. That's the part I don't know. I think most of these cities that are out there aren't university towns. They're different.
I think you have room for both of them.
Well,
I mean,
we do. I just know
you
that
can, yeah.
the influence from UCF is unavoidable. So we need to somehow figure out, I gotta believe there's some retirement people in Gainesville, but I'm not sure how they do that. Yeah, or how
company has big profits, they have disposable income.
Yeah.
But just like I said, infrastructure, I was just thinking links, you know, we really have a, limited is the easiest word, link system that runs through here, so we don't have a real,
That's one of the things you have to do. The first step is assessing your ability to serve this generation.
For streetscape, parking, traffic, a big concern on the impact of Oviedo on the park, on Mitchell Hammock corridor. So a lot of people raise that issue. Then the need to create alternative routes is our response, but it's also there as an implication. Parking is key for a lot of people. I mean, some.
We are.
Hey,
Hey, Brian, can you do me a favor? The east-west corridor study, you know, the one that shows how this is all going to work and why we created the traffic exemption district for Oviedo on the park. Can you get that up on SharePoint? Sure. That study is probably in the back room there. Now, everybody on council can read it, for those who haven't read it, and have an understanding of how it's going to work and why 419 and 426 is the priority.
Yeah. Heard that. Smith Street and all that stuff.
No,
One of the conclusions was, he asked for that, because I just showed him one of the things people said to improve the traffic on Mitchell Hammock.
Right.
With the new downtown, everything, what he's saying is this traffic study, when all this is done, 419,
419
426,
becomes part
they're
of
gonna whip through
becomes
there.
part of the
East-West
Many
corridor.
cars are gonna stay off of Mitchell Hammock and now use this new route, which is probably correct. But at some point in time, you're gonna have to add a third lane to Mitchell Hammock, whether that's in or not.
There's one other
You're gonna
roadway.
have to.
There's one other roadway that study calls for. That's the big challenge. That's McCulloch.
Yes.
That's the big challenge.
that's the big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Let me tell you, it's backed up a mile at McCullough and Old Lockwood Boulevard.
If that,
It's backed up a mile.
if that bridge went over at McCullough, you know how much traffic would come off of Lockwood and Mitchell Hammock?
Tremendous. It'd be tremendous.
Can you imagine if you were coming from the south to go home?
oh,
Your
like I
house?
said, I see everybody, you know, there's as much traffic that comes up and rolls down Lockwood every day. It's bananas how much traffic will be gone. Come out, peel a right and go that way.
But anyway, because that is a concern that we hear when we go out, and we talk to the residents. So if we can get that thing up for council to see, and then maybe get a condensed version of it, you know, up on the website so people can see it.
And a lot of people don't understand, if you then tell them, well, there's gonna be a light, full service light going here, they only see, oh, that means they're gonna be stopped more. It's like, no, they'll all be there working in sync to help you move, they're not there to stop you and keep stopping along the way. They're there to help keep the traffic moving, so that'll also help.
Sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
So,
I'll be
yeah,
quiet.
parking was key, was brought by many comments. Some people, there was consensus that no one liked parallel parking in Florida. Someone said, here in Florida, we
Most
don't
people
like.
probably don't even know how to do it.
Yeah, parallel parking.
They don't even test it on the
There's no
road
parallel
test in
parking.
Florida. Can you believe that?
There was, what, sorry?
When you take a road test in Florida, you do not have to parallel
I
park.
know, yeah, I've done, yeah.
Right?
I did. Up
New
in
York,
New
you
York,
had
yeah.
to do it.
Well, in Brazil, that's the only thing that you are tested. It's parallel parking.
Parallel parking,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you want to do, if you know how to do that,
Once
you
you know how to
get
do
it.
that, you're good. Unless you get one of them new cars that does itself, right?
Oh, yeah, that will
That's
change,
what you do.
that will
You
change,
get the
yeah.
cars that will do it for you.
Then, you know, a lot of comments also on park and open space, but nothing that,
A water playground, they meant like a splash pad.
yes, I think some of the stuff,
They got-
The lazy river, you know, the lazy river around,
I still hear it. Oh, look at that signage, let's talk about that.
so signage, people don't like the neon colors and the digital, right? Some people complain about that, and they were not scored well, any of those
So let's
pictures.
eliminate them from the code.
If city council decides,
I'll
that's,
tell you, you drive up and down 434 now, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them by Chapman. There's all, it's ridiculous.
so city logo, please keep the chickens, and the growth control was a big issue. So these are all the,
Signs, no digital, very tacky.
yes, they were not they didn't, none of them ranked well.
Now, Brian, we do hold you personally responsible for letting those into the city.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
You opened the door, cracked it open.
Like too much development recently.
Yes, they had, yeah, there was that comment, but the pictures you,
I'm like, really weird.
I just marked here the most popular, the most favorable one, and the least favorable ones. And, I mean, we can go to
I
each
think
one,
we've
but
all
I
kinda
think we
looked at
can,
the
yeah.
pictures.
you'll-
Like trees,
so
I don't
I'll
like
win-
buildings.
Yeah.
Does everybody want to go through the pictures, so you got the ideas?
So the conclusions, let me go there.
Actually, Jordan Crossing wasn't too well liked in this thing.
Oh,
There were some interesting things, for instance, the zero setback, people were not ready for that. They showed that the medium setback was the right move. So there's a lot of good input that we, you know, how to approach, how to move forward.
Well, the funny thing is like on a townhome neighborhood, they liked it. But on, you know, multifamily
But still,
residential.
there are the steps, right? So it's not really,
yeah, look at
you have
Park
the
Avenue doesn't have a
steps.
setback, does it?
No.
Park? It's how you do it.
And I think wayfinding signs, I don't think they quite understood what that was.
Yes, that was, they didn't.
They didn't
got a
realize
lot
that it
of
was like for the
information, yeah.
downtown.
But for the townhome or homes, it was interesting that the rear parking showed up, right? Because the one that has the front loaded garage was really low ranked, and the one with the rear came up with
I was
higher.
told, just that if anyone's interested, the Ashton townhomes, the three-story ones are now going to be priced at $349, and the two-story ones are going to start at $269.
This is in Oviedo in the Park?
That's what I was told.
That's good to know.
So the conclusions, they want to have a family-oriented city. I mean, this was stressed all over.
The next one's the whole, I like the next one. Urban amenities, but they want to keep a small-town character.
Well, but that was, they want to have it in a defined area. They don't want it
A
everywhere.
sense of place, you want a
Yeah.
place to go for that urban environment.
Which is what Oviedo on the Park will be,
That's
and up and
exactly, they're
down,
doing exactly what they want.
and up and down Oviedo Boulevard and the old historic downtown, but then they'll,
We're seeing about the small-town character, but I almost disagree, because they really, well, they're putting it, I want, the small-town character is the historic downtown. They want that, but the urban amenities, but they still want it to feel like the town.
I think this small-town character is Oviedo on the Park, where you have a 4th of July event and bands out there on the weekends and stuff like that, where people come and they see all the people they know, and that's where you get that flavor. I don't think it has a whole lot to do with the buildings.
I wonder what the results of this survey would have been
Environment.
had we done a more mass survey, because you had, 50 people in this survey I take right out because they don't live here, 91%, right? There was people that don't live in Oviedo, but the people that did respond, they are well-focused, been here for a long time. I would like to see what somebody who's lived here only 3 years has to say. It's a good starting point, but is it?
well, they were in some, when you go through the one that Teresa gave us with all the comments, you can find, because they identify themselves, I've only been here a few years, I've only been here 5 years. Those comments, you're right, are completely different than the people who say, I've been here 30 years and you've ruined everything.
But also, what was interesting, there are a lot of people that
And
are
then we
not
say, Brian's been here
residents.
17, it's his fault.
There are a lot of people that are not residents.
Actually, well,
Some of them express that they want to come to Oviedo.
Oh, really?
So they are potential residents. So that's, I mean, you cannot really also
I just like to
negate
see,
their,
with a city of 35,000, I would have liked to see, 5,000.
There's a lot of
responses
emotional
as opposed to
attachment to
500,
older
just to get a little better feel.
In this case.
Because
actually,
maybe just
500 is pretty good.
some of those comments, are people who have been here forever, and they don't like any of it.
yes.
But the point I was making, which is in there, is that these people are here for 3 or 4 years, want urban, they want modern.
Go to attachment.
They
three
do,
when you get home.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that's been here forever. What do you think, Lars?
Teresa gave you.
You doing okay or not?
Yeah, I haven't read the results of the survey, but I think you got a pretty good database there to get enough information.
But what was interesting,
And
that's
they want
also,
cafes with tables the street, I saw
Yeah,
that.
why not?
And they want to have a place, restaurants, nice restaurants to go. Some comments were, I don't want to leave Oviedo to go to a nice restaurant or,
You know, in a nice, instead of looking at a parking lot, nice little park.
and there was also a call for more socialization. They were trying to, we want to meet
Places to
people.
hang out.
To
Well,
hang
that-
out,
that's a
like
big
public spaces,
we need
right?
that.
There was a
Well,
clear
come out and
need
meet your
for
friends
that.
out here and have a good time.
Yeah.
That's the small town feel they're looking for.
I can tell you, there are a lot of folks that want to know what's going to happen at this amphitheater. And they're really interested in weekend activities and these kind of things. They're just thrilled.
Tom Jones.
There you go.
You know,
Now-
Bobby Wyatt told me the other day, they're gonna stock that lake over there, Oviedo on the park.
Good.
I actually had somebody ask me if we were going to let people swim.
No.
Fish. Bobby says fish.
Let's see. It'll be this deep, but it's really only gonna be this deep.
You don't want to swim in that.
It's supposed to be that deep, but it's really gonna be that deep.
Large fresh
Remind me to
water,
tell you about the swimming
hot
story
temperatures.
from this past weekend.
You don't want to be in there, right?
All right, does anybody have anything else for Teresa? I'm gonna wrap this up because we're just wandering now. I think we got the point. Thank you, you did a great job.
It is. It
You're-
really
I'm
is very
ju-
informative.
I'm just going to conclude saying that it was such an easy and cheap way to reach out. We spent less than $100
Yeah.
with this survey. We did internally, and then we used the Survey Monkey. It was really
So we
cheap.
can do more things like this in the future.
Yeah, and
and
even if
improve
we
upon
want
them as we go.
specific questions, I mean, it's an easy way to reach out.
It's done
It
through the
was a
website.
good start.
Move to adjourn.
Well, we appreciate it.
Did you guys
Thank
hear the
you.
story